6 static holds. No repetitions, no tempo. Just maximum tension at the joint angles where most lifters fail. Soviet sports scientists built entire programs around these positions, targeting everything from squat hole stability to raw yoke-building toughness, and the EMG data backs them up, with some holds hitting over 90% motor unit recruitment. We are breaking down each one, starting where every strong body starts, the bottom of a squat. Number 1. The isometric goblet or front squat. Hold sets the foundation for Soviet static strength. The lifter cradles a kettlebell or dumbbell at the chest, drops into a front squat stance and holds it parallel, hips in line with knees, torso upright, elbows high. This is the squat hole, the joint angle where most lifters stall, and where Soviet sports scientists demanded maximum tension. At this 90-degree knee angle, the quadriceps and glutes are pushed to their mechanical limits, driving knee extension torques to a benchmark of roughly 1.4 times body weight. Surface electromyography studies confirm that this hold recruits 88 to 92% of maximal voluntary isometric contraction in the quads, matching and sometimes exceeding the muscle activation seen in heavy dynamic squats. The core is forced to brace hard, locking the spine in position against collapse, while the forearms and grip stabilize the load. Soviet SST protocols prescribed 3 sets of 5 to 10 seconds, repeated 2 to 3 times per week, with a focus on absolute stillness and breath control. This approach, which is brace, sit or coordinate, hold, trains the nervous system to fire high-threshold motor units at the weakest point of the lift, rapidly erasing the classic squat sticking point. No fancy equipment is needed. A single kettlebell or barbell is enough to trigger adaptation. By building stability and torque at the bottom, the isometric goblet or front squat hold prepares the body for every advanced posterior chain hold that follows, anchoring the Soviet principle of loading the weakest joint angle first. In second place, the mid-range deadlift pull hold demands absolute force at the toughest part of the lift. The bar is pulled from the floor to knee height, then held motionless for 4 to 6 seconds. Elbows stay locked, the spine braced like steel, and the entire posterior chain, glutes, hamstrings, spinal erectors, fires at nearly full capacity. EMG and force plate studies confirm what Soviet sports science suspected. This static pull at knee level drives 85 to 90% of maximal voluntary contraction in the hamstrings and erectors, with ground reaction force peaking around 1.3 times body weight. National team records document a 4% increase in 1 rep max deadlifts after just 2 weeks of adding these holds. No extra volume, just pure concentrated tension. The real secret is the synergy between upper body brace and lower body drive. Lats, traps, and grip lock the bar in place while the hips and back generate relentless upward force. Programming is simple. 3 sets of 4 to 6 seconds, 2 or 3 times per week, always with a rigid core and no slack at the top. This is where lifters erase the lockout stall for good. By holding at the point where most deadlifts fail, the mid-range pull hold forges hip extension power that carries over to every compound lift. Lock, drive, hold. That is how the Soviets built unbreakable finish strength. Number 3, the 90-degree pull-up hold, locks the body into the most unforgiving point of vertical pulling. With the chin just above the bar, the elbows bent at a right angle, and the scapula pulled tight, the lats and biceps are forced into an all-out contraction. This is the position where most lifters stall, and where Soviet protocols demanded absolute stillness. Surface EMG data backs up the tradition. The latissimus dorsi fires at an average of 92% of maximal voluntary isometric contraction, exceeding the activation seen in a full concentric pull-up. That means the muscles are working harder and longer, with no momentum to hide behind. 3 sets of 4 to 6 seconds, loaded progressively with a weight belt, are enough to trigger rapid gains in mid-range pulling power. By bracing at the sticking point, the nervous system adapts, sending a surge of motor units into the lats, rhomboids, and biceps. The result is explosive strength for weighted pulls, muscle growth across the upper back, and a new level of shoulder stability, essential before tackling deep dip holds or advanced pressing. Pull, lock, brace. The 90-degree pull-up hold is the Soviet answer to the classic plateau, forging upper body power that carries over to every compound lift. Number 4. The isometric dip bottom position hold brings pressing strength into sharp focus. At the deepest point of the dip, with the shoulders rolled into full external rotation and the elbows bent past 120 degrees, the chest and triceps are forced into a stretch that most lifters never touch in standard pressing. This is the Soviet answer to building chest thickness and pressing density, holding steady where the muscle is at its longest under maximum tension. Surface electromyography tests from community trials and strength coaches consistently show pectoral activation approaching 90% of maximal voluntary isometric contraction, with triceps not far behind. But the stretch comes at a price. Shoulder compression in this position can reach an estimated 1.2 times body weight, according to lever arm mechanics, making the bottom hold a high-stakes move for anyone with limited shoulder mobility. That is why Soviet protocols demand a progressive range of motion ladder. Start with a band-assisted or bench dip, then move to partial depth and only attempt the full bottom hold when the stretch feels stable and pain-free. 3 to 5 seconds at the deepest safe depth for 3 sets is all it takes to trigger adaptation. The payoff is rapid. Thick chest fibers, denser triceps, and a nervous system primed for explosive pressing. But the warning is clear. Respect the stretch, progress slowly, and never force range at the expense of joint health. For lifters who master this hold, ordinary dips and bench presses become trivial by comparison. Soviet discipline, applied at the weakest pressing angle, forges a chest and triceps that lock out heavy weights with authority. Number 5, the hollow body hold, is the Soviet answer to building a bracing system that acts like armor for every heavy lift. Lying supine, arms extended overhead and feet hovering just above the ground, the lifter presses the lower back flat into the floor and holds. No arch, no slack, just relentless anterior core tension. This position is not about movement. It is about creating a deep, sustained contraction through the rectus abdominis, the transverse abdominis, and the hip flexors, while the spinal erectors stabilize from beneath. Electromyography studies show the hollow body hold recruits 78 to 84% of maximal voluntary isometric contraction in the rectus abdominis, significantly higher than the standard plank, which averages around 65%. The result is a surge in intra-abdominal pressure, locking the spine into a safe, rigid column that supports any load placed on the shoulders or in the arms. Soviet-era protocols prescribed holds of 20 to 40 seconds, repeated for 3 to 4 sets, always maintaining strict lumbar contact with the ground. The key is integration, upper and lower segments firing together, forging a single, unbreakable chain from shoulders to toes. This is the foundation for full-body tension, essential before tackling the brutal, front-loaded Zercher hold that follows. For lifters chasing real core stiffness with minimal equipment, the hollow body hold delivers uncompromising results. Brace like armor. Hold until you shake. That's how the Soviets built a core capable of withstanding any challenge. Number 6. The Zercher hold is the final proving ground for Soviet static strength. The lifter cradles a loaded barbell in the crook of the elbows, drops into a squat just above parallel, and holds, every muscle from the traps to the forearms screaming for release. This is not a comfortable position. The bar bites into the flesh, the upper back strains to stay upright, and the core braces so hard it feels like armor plating. Soviet sports science called this the ultimate test of yoke-building toughness, a front-loaded assault on the entire anterior chain and upper back, designed to forge the kind of stability that survives both heavy squats and Olympic cleans. Force plate and EMG data from recent MDPI studies suggest that the Zercher hold produces anterior chain torque up to 1.5 times body weight, with quadriceps and core activation hovering near 90% of maximal voluntary contraction, matching the most demanding isometric squats ever measured. Programming is simple but savage. Do 3 sets of 6 to 8 seconds with a load heavy enough to require total body tension from the first breath. Igor Novikov, a Soviet strongman legend, once credited a 6-week Zerker block with adding 7 kilograms to his clean and jerk, a leap that even modern coaches struggle to replicate. This hold is the culmination of every tension principle in the Soviet arsenal. Maximal load, brutal leverage, no escape. Embrace the bar. Survive the hold. That is how the Soviets built a yoke that could carry any weight, in competition or in life. Across all 6 holds, one pattern is clear. Maximal tension at the hardest joint angles rewires your body for raw power. These isometric positions are brutal, demanding, and precise, and they target the weak links others ignore. In strength, adaptation favors the bold. True muscle is not built by movement, but by holding the impossible.